Well, 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 look what we have here. Curious onlookers trying to find out what a premium entertainment house in the capital of Tang Dynasty is all about. I don't blame you. We've been so exclusive that most average people don't even get to set foot in our place. So today, we're going to share with you our trade secrets and how to set up one in your 21st century world. I'm Mama Pan, the owner and head of Yanzilou, an entertainment house situated in northern quarter of Chang'an, capital of Tang, China, just across the street from our Prime Minister's dwelling. Yes, we are that close to the center of power. Welcome to Singapore and welcome to Yanzilou. From now until the end of the session, if you have any question, do not hesitate to post them in the chat box, and our facilitator, Lynn, will come to that in time. It is said that music has the ability to transport one into a different realm. So I am going to initiate everyone into our Tang with a piece of music from our time and invite you to have a glimpse of our lives in the ancient world. That is a piece called Ruimin, a natural piece from the 8th century China. Yanzilou is also known as a Swallow Pavilion. It's where my late husband and I lived during the Tang Dynasty China before being transformed into a courtesan house after his passing. When I came into your world, I decided to recreate it based on whatever limited resource available to me today. I thought there wouldn't be much left from my period. But after 4 years of research and fine-tuning of things, I'm glad that I've uncovered some hidden gems along the way, and that our worlds aren't too distant after all. To start off, I needed a bunch of fellow courtesans who shared my vision of Yanzilou. I did a call out twice for intellectually engaging women to join me. Intellectually engaging, because it would be a steep learning curve with lots of self-directed reading and learning to uncover the ancient world where I used to live. I can't spoon feed them. They just have to find their ancient selves on their own. You probably think that this is all just a performance. Actresses playing their role given to them. Let me tell you a secret. Within each of the courtesans in Yanzilou resides an ancient soul waiting to be awakened. The women in your world slowly joined and uncovered the ancient selves. They pieced together their own family history, character profile, and stories from their perspectives. They own their stories. We wanted to let you in our world, this world that we created. So we studied immersive theater pieces such as Sleep No More and Alice. I have to say, you modern people are really creative with all these make-believe escapisms. For us, the ancient courtesans of Yanzilou, the enjoyment of fine arts is itself a reward. And we really just wanted to share that with you eventually. You might be curious about our identity. Are we courtesans, Chinese geishas, performing artists? What? Who are we? What's our job, really? You probably have heard a lot about those famous poets of Tang, Li Bai, Baizhi, Du Fu, all of which were men. But you probably do not know how much of an influence we courtesans have on them and their success. We are the muse appearing in many of their works. We are the influencers of taste, spreading their good names and popularizing their poems by endorsing them, reciting them, or singing a song along with them at our banquets. We are also creators of fine poems, artworks, and even some inventions. Unfortunately, we were not very good at claiming credits or leaving our name for posterity. So our words, our talent, and our legacies were forgotten with the passage of time. In our world, dance and music were one, and they were an important part of being a literati. You couldn't be a literati unless you know how to dance. So what sets us apart from a court official or literati is really just our gender and social caste. We were just as talented. Most of us are born into this slave caste. Our families had a long lineage as performers, and naturally, we continued in this trade. In the peak of Tang, we became the most influential and popular icons, with the emperor himself setting up a royal academy of performing arts in the palace, first in history of Chinese. Any respectable banquet will have to invite us over. We are what you call officially endorsed. You probably wonder how are we relevant in empowerment of modern women, since we were of slave caste in a very patriarchal world. Think about it this way. Aren't we the perfect example of rags to riches stories, which your modern world celebrates? Didn't we break the glass ceiling that separates the good folks from the slaves? Aren't we a place owned and operated by women and celebrated women not for looks, but talent and intellect? Something very empowering even for your modern world. Over time, for reasons beyond our control, the Chinese term for us, ji, came to be known as prostitutes, and our profession became a taboo. Like geishas, we were known most for our talent, and I might argue that we were much more talented than your average beauty queens today. In fact, even until the 20th century, Chinese courtesans were known and valued for our talent and knowledge, not looks. Based on the Me Too movement, I do see a lot of similarities between our world. For us, we offer men, powerful men, the promise of romantic love that they typically wouldn't get from their wives and concubines, because marriage was based on compatibility of family backgrounds, not love. Sex was more consensual than a purchase of service for us. These men engaged us for companionship and intellectual engagement. But it might not always be the case for everybody. We were, after all, still in a patriarchal world where the powerful dictated a lot of things. So I created Yanzilou with the hope of offering a safe space for people like me, a supportive environment for female creatives or artists to explore our ancient and feminine identities. Women in your world are not necessarily having it any easier than us. We had a very defined role to entertain. But your modern women have to be the wife, the mother, the concubine, the lover, while still trying to make a living like a man. For all the many talents of courtesans in Yanzilou, we decided to focus on dance specifically. This is in part due to the fact that for about 1,000 years, because of Neo-Confucianism's restriction of women appearing in public and the foot binding practice, which makes it impossible to dance, the movement of women and our identity that's represented in public and popular culture has been done by men. While you have resumed this practice of female dancing in the last 100 years or so, you've lost much of that memory and legacy. Of course, it's impossible for anyone to recreate the ancient past now, since so much time has passed. But I think that it's time for us to try to take back that ancient narrative of women, especially that of the performing artists that we know today as the courtesans. So I dropped a plan of my own, where patrons will be divided into different tiers, with the most talented and influential ones being invited to participate in the process, an evening with the courtesans of games, dance, music, and exotic food and wine. And the least talented ones would just be mere bystanders and voyeurs to the night. This was a grand plan, and it only occurred to me that I left all my treasures in town, with no resources to fund it now. So I went back to the drawing board several times to rescale it. And like a phoenix rising from the ashes, we rebuilt our imagined world in the Stanford Arts Center last year, just before the circuit breaker. A few fortunate modern souls managed to catch a glimpse of it. The good thing about being a courtesan is that your stories are often integrated into fan fictions of different periods and passed down as gossips or moralizing tales. So you're not completely forgotten. The downside is your story is very much incomplete and one-sided based on whatever agenda the storyteller has. When I identified the potential courtesans in 2018, I crafted a training program which was first conducted by academics and professional artists before letting them identify their own research topics. It's only when they know the ancient world that we lived in that the ancient souls can be truly awakened, and they can reasonably craft a three-dimensional character from our period. Flowers was an important aspect of our culture. While many think of ikebana, not many know about the Chinese history with floral arrangement, and its peak started with the introduction of Buddhism just before the Tang dynasty. We are very much attuned to the changing seasons, and flowers were a large part of our world. Men and women adored them. Interior design was important because that's how we do up our place tastefully for our patrons of high caliber. Tea has a completely way of consumption in our time. Our friend Louis, who wrote the first book on tea, The Classics of Tea, revolutionized tea drinking in our time in Tang. Many of you today probably associate incense with religious practices, but back in the old days, they were as innocent as your perfume and fragrances today, permeating our daily routines from bathing to clothing. And like tea, it's a story of trade. There are only two types of women whose words are passed on for posterity in ancient China: aristocrats or highly influential women, and ours. It's also imperative that courtesans understand about the writing material of our paintings and poems, because tools are just as important as our art. I'm not exaggerating when I mention that we Tang courtesans host the best parties. We also have the best storytelling cultures in that town, or what you call today fan fictions. It's all in the Tang Tales collection that all the courtesans need to be aware of. Maybe one day we'll conduct a storytelling session based on those in the collection. Of course, the Go chess or Wei Qi, along with backgammon, were very popular games for parties. We even have dedicated courtesans who are so skilled in them that influential men, talented literaries, will engage them just for a game of chess. History of Chinese literature and characters, too, are important to provide the modern courtesans with some context. As slaves, we also needed to know our rights, and we need to understand that Tang women, contrary to popular belief, were not necessarily the most legally protected in the history of China. The Song dynasty, in fact, were a lot better for us. The Tang dynasty, as glorious as it was in our imagination and memory, was also a highly unsustainable and bureaucratic one, and its downfall inevitable. That we learned through the Tang dynasty political structure. It is important that the courtesans bear all these in mind when we enter into our ancient selves, so that our romanticization of the ancient world doesn't get the better of us. And we acknowledge that as whimsical as courtesan culture might sound, it is definitely not the epitome of female empowerment, although it does provide alternatives for female identity in a highly hierarchical society. And you can't be a qualified courtesan without knowing an awful lot about dressing up, accessorizing yourselves, dance and music, food and wine. Even though we only have 2 meals a day back in Tang, China, we definitely make the best out of each meal. Because we do not exist in a vacuum, and we had a thriving land and sea trading route with the rest of the world, we're definitely very aware and intrigued by the exotic foreign cultures as they were about us. Japan, for instance, sent a lot of envoys and monks to China in our time to learn about our culture, and they did a splendid job of adopting it to their own. Their courtesan culture, as we found out, were remarkably similar to that of ours. And when the modern world was busy showing off their glamping photos, we already did it 1,200 years ago. The famous poet Bai Juyi was most famous for glamping in his own backyard with a self-made tentage and barbecuing away. We also live in an extremely multicultural and multi-faith world, with Buddhism from India, Zoroaster from Persia or Central Asia, Nestoria from Rome, Taoism indigenous to China, and Islam, coexisting peacefully in our time. The Sogdians, or the modern-day Iranians, were one of the most familiar foreigners to us, as they act as middlemen between our world and the West. With whatever limited resources and connections I have in your world, I managed to scout a Southeast Asian craftsman who helped us create some of my favorite pieces from my Tang dynasty. I was about to make them available for the modern folks, but COVID disrupted my plans. Yes, all these were made by the Southeast Asian craftsmen. I'm very impressed by the level of craftsmanship in your machine-dependent world. Guess not all is lost. This is my dear friend, an instrument from the West, the Tang pipa, that now resides in the Socio-political collection in Nara, Japan. It was a gift from our world Japanese emperor in the 8th century. I missed it so much. So I made it myself a replica, and I allowed the courtesans to hold it from time to time. Of course, there are many other objects which I have a semblance of in Yanzilou. See if you could spot them during the online experience when we launch it. It is not enough that the courtesans understand their part. In order for them to be truly transformed into a Tang period courtesan, they need to look that part. I had a quick look at the dramas in your time depicting Tang dynasty women, but unfortunately, none of them made the cut. Your Tang women are too conventional and plain for my liking. We Tang courtesans were the trendsetters. We have bold makeup styles with wonderful collections of brow works, short, long, thick, and all kinds of shapes, colors. And we have fantastic collection of facial decorations that spans across our entire face. So I needed to reinstate the aesthetic and confidence in the modern woman, while ensuring that they do not overdo it. We, Tang women, had a fine balance between taste and confidence. The wonderful thing about our time are the colors of lapis lazuli, turquoise, jade, silk, gold and silver, dyes, and flowers. Each of us has a story of who we are, where we came from, how we ended up in Yanzilou, and why we are staying put or not. A town courtesan human library would be fun, if only that's physically possible. And my favorite part of town is our confidence to carry off different styles of look and different body types. It is a myth that we're all about plus size. We were actually very diverse. We're just confident the way we were. And our musicians, they aren't plain Janes either. We recorded them playing some actual tunes from our period and some tunes that were inspired by our period. And in the near future, we intend to rearrange the ancient tunes properly for your consumption. You get to hear some of them in the online experience. We had the pleasure of having some guest performers as well, Neil and Govin, such energetic and promising young men who captured the West tunes of our period splendidly, completed with our Western influence Sogdian Whirl dance. This is a glimpse of behind the scenes where we dance fervently to live music from the West. Yes, men and women danced together, albeit with some social distancing. But partying together was not a taboo in our time, unlike what many assumed about the Chinese culture. Of course, we have to feature an Indian dancer. Songs and dance from the West, which includes India, all the rage in our times. We adored Buddhism, and even the way we accessorize ourselves were very much influenced by India. Our dancers were inspired by ancient arts as well in their choreography, and their looks were also based on artifacts from our time period. This particular dance was conceptualized based on the story of hundreds of dancing horses of Tang, trained to pick up wine glasses and offer it to the emperor at his birthday celebration and events. And when the rebel forces invaded the capital, these horses were taken away by someone who was unaware of their talent and whipped to death, as their new owners thought they were possessed by demons when they started dancing to music. Their story echoes that of ours and the fate of Tang. So, what is Chinese arts to you?
I'd like to invite Pan to comment on a comment from Raymond. So he said he was very surprised to see there was infusion of Indian traditions. So tell us a bit about Tang and the metropolis that it is.
Yes, we always think that our modern world is probably the most cosmopolitan there is. But back in those days with trade, we actually were very much connected as well. We actually have 3 Indian court officials in Tang court. 2 of them were astrologers, another was a mathematician. The mathematician actually, I think he introduced the concept of zero to China. So during Tang Dynasty, we also have the Sogdians who took up a lot of roles in Tang world. And if you actually look at the town map of Chang'an, you realize that they have a Nestorian church, Buddhist temple, a Taoist temple, and a Zoroastrian temple, all in the same neighborhood. So it's really as cosmopolitan as your Telok Ayer Street.
So it sounds like in the past or in ancient times, people are very accepting of foreigners. They could even take up government jobs or public service jobs in court, as you said. Indian astrologers taking up official posts in Tang court.
Yes, that's also in part because I think our ruler were themselves not a typical Chinese Han. I think since it's been 1,200 years, so all this information are declassified. In fact, he claimed that he was the descendant of Lao Tzu to gain legitimacy of ruling over the Han Chinese people. But he was actually from a descendant of the Toba tribes in Central Asia, and that sort of migrated and fused with the local Chinese people. And that's how they became the ruler of Chinese society eventually. So even in their lifestyle, as you can see, dance and being so open about gathering of men and women were actually very much foreign to the traditional Chinese society.
Thank you, Pan Pan. And I think this is a good time to bring out our panelists and let them tell us how, when they came aboard this project, what's their role in the project, and how did they develop these characters in their project, and what do they do actually in real life. So we have Rupa. Welcome, Rupa. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi everyone. My name is Rupa. So basically, I'm an Indian classical dancer, Bharatanatyam, and I am also trained in other genres such as classical ballet and modern contemporary. So I got to know Pan Pan back in 2018 when she started off the whole project, and she got me on board to choreograph an Indian classical piece together with some of the other dancers. And so basically my character in the project is related to one of the astrologers that Pan Pan mentioned just now. So he's my brother in the real world. And what I am trying to showcase in my piece is the beauty of certain symbolisms that are very important to the Indian traditional culture. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, we have next, Ruimin.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruimin. So I got into Yanzilou a little bit later than the other courtesans. I got to know Pan Pan actually quite a few years ago. It was through a tea appreciation kind of event that we went to. And then it was then that I knew about Hanfugirls and I got to know more about her plans for it. But after that, I had to leave Singapore. So I was overseas for a period of time. So I wasn't, I didn't really get too much into it. And then when I came back and I kept following up, and I knew how the things that she has planned for and the things that she's doing, because I have also friends who are in Yanzilou. And it was then that I told her that I'm still interested in being part of this Yanzilou. And then we sort of discussed about how my character could be in the courtesan house. And then that was when I came into Yanzilou. So my role in Yanzilou is I was a courtesan who grew up among from a jiaofang. So in a jiaofang, it's sort of like how we would say in our modern day how we go to an art school. So it's not really through an academic route, but more of the arts route. So I think that is something that is very similar to my real life. And also for my character, Ling Yao, she's supposed to be someone who is very proficient in both music and dance, because in the past, when we talk about Yue, we don't really differentiate what is music and what is dance, but it's more of an art form altogether. So I think that's also really close to my real life, because I also enjoy playing musical instruments. And I also do find that musicality in dance is a very important part in my artistic journey. Yep.
So I see the picture there, Ling Yao holding the pipa, and there was a question earlier from our audience that asked if the pipa is an instrument from other part of Asia. I don't know, Mama Pan, do you want to take that question?
I believe that Neil will be a more qualified person to answer this.
Okay, we'll hold that off to our in-house musician. Okay, next, let's welcome Lynn, who is also supporting the technical support for today's session. Lynn, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Lynn. I apologize for the technical part, multitasking here. But anyway, I am a Chinese dance trained dancer in Singapore. So all along I've been learning Chinese dance locally and being trained locally rather than going overseas to study Chinese dance. Actually, I'm also trained in contemporary ballet, a little bit of hip hop and jazz as well, because I studied in LaSalle College of the Arts. As my character, I'm actually a courtesan who is an apprentice. And I belong to the group of courtesans who are interested in foreign culture, which is very applicable to my real life, where I am actually very interested in a culture that is not say very not openly available, but where we have a ton of resources for, which is Chinese ethnic dance, where in order to learn more about it, we actually have to travel there to learn their culture and to learn their dance. Yeah, so it's actually quite similar to my own character. Oh, and how I managed to come onto this project. So like many of you, I found Pan Hanfugirls on Instagram and I started following her. So when I had this project where I needed research materials, I gathered up my courage to ask Pan, who to me at that point in time was on a pedestal of like an influencer. And I asked her if she could share some research materials in regards to what I was looking into. And then she invited me to come aboard on this project because I mean, there was still space and she could bring me in. So technically speaking, even in real life, I am an apprentice. I'm still learning a lot, which is very much apparent, similar to my own character in Yanzilou. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn. Next. Okay, the musician, Neil.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mama Pan, for having me today. I'm Neil. I'm a run instrumentalist and a co-founder of Run and Works Musical Arts, which is a charity arts group in Singapore. And mainly, we are focusing on multidisciplinary works. And then I came on board of this project not too long ago as a guest musician in Yanzilou. And then I received a call from Mama Pan that she told me she needed help on a segment of music. So she wondered maybe I can play some music for her dancer. So the result was just now you listened and you watched the videos. That was the result we created together. And then in real life, actually, I'm a musician and I'm also a teacher, an art director, and I'm also a tennis addict as well. So just now, Mama Pan passed me a question about regarding about the pipa and the history of the pipa, right? So I think the participants are also asking about these questions. So the pipa actually is introduced from the Middle East Asia to the China. I think, if I'm not wrong, it's back to the Han Dynasty. The China have this instrument already. And then, but the run, which is the round shape instrument, you can see in the slide, actually was originated in China. So it's a pure Chinese, instruments. And then the difference between the pipa and run, the pipa is in a pear shape, and then previously the pipa actually is not an instrument name as a technique name. So when they are plucking forward, they call it P, and then when they are plucking backward, call it Pa. So this actually is a plucking instruments name for all the plucking instruments. So you have a different shape of pipa, like a pear shape or round shape or whatever. And in the previous time, they all call pipa. And then until the Tang Dynasty, they tried to differentiate it. And then so they found this round shape instrument in a sage's tomb. And then they want to honor it. And then they call it Ranxian or Ran after that. Yeah. So, and then Ranxian actually is, Ran actually is, it's quite a sad instrument because it have been lost twice in the history. And then now what we have actually is a new creation, or the people recreate this instrument based on the ancient runs. And then for the ancient runs, right, we only can find in Japan's Nara museums, although the Chinese, they don't have any one of it. Yeah. So yeah. So I hope I answer your questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Neil. We learned something new today. And indeed, Pei CS, very talented folks. Mama Pan is a great talent scout. She's got a collective of very talented people under her. So last but not least, we have Madeline.
Hello, everyone. So like what Mama Pan mentioned earlier, she held like a mass interview for all the courtesans, or actually all the girls who are interested in the Chinese culture, and especially more so in the ancient Chinese culture. And I was one of them. Sad to hear that I wasn't the top few picks in the very first round. I was actually quite discarded to the back, but Mama Pan, being the amazing scout that she is, she's like, maybe this is a unpolished diamond. Let's just keep her by the side. So I came on and joined on the whole series of lessons and lectures and workshops. And yeah, I'm glad that I'm still here and still thriving. So in the real life, which is in Yanzilou, my character is someone who is thrown into slave caste. So my family wasn't actually from the slave caste. We're actually scholars, but because of life happens and decisions were made, I was sold off into the slave caste and into a courtesan industry. So I was pretty much thrown into the sea and was left to survive on my own. So that kind of mimic what is in my real life. So I joined a new industry, which is photography and videography. I'm from Camera Rental Center, and I have to start learning things from scratch and pretty much try to stay alive with almost zero knowledge. So I've developed a character to be very open to learning about absolutely everything and anything. So music, dance, poetry, calligraphy, painting. So anything that you ask, I pretty much know a bit about everything. So I'm the all-rounder that quite a lot of courtesans hate in Yanzilou, because an overachiever, someone who tries too hard, someone who always wants to be the winner, but not so much, just trying to survive. And of course, not from a fortunate background as compared to the other girls who have better education, better family ties, or yeah, pretty much life was on their side until it decided not to. So when we first created the project of Yanzilou, it was supposed to be an immersive theater. So people could come and be part of our experience. But COVID happened, things change a lot of times. And we decided to make it to a video form, still sort of interactive, where you can kind of choose your path as you make your way through Yanzilou and our stories. So I took on the role as the director / videographer / cinematographer / many other roles, producer. Hopefully that the final product will do all the courtesan justice, and especially the guest musicians and the guest participants who spend lots of hours with us to create this video. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. So, and I think that also answers Raymond's question about what inspires one to join Yanzilou. And I suppose, Raymond, you refer to Yanzilou being the character motivation to join Yanzilou, and not the person in modern day in real life to join the Hanfugirls Collective project. So I'll also chime in here. I think our different characters have different motivations joining Yanzilou. For me, my character and Xiao in Yanzilou has some rivalry going on, but that's really just a cover because Lynn is actually a spy in Yanzilou, and that's what brought her there. So Mama Pan, before we go into the more, I guess, serious and deep discussions, I've noted a few questions in the chat box, and I thought, how about we answer them first? There's one that's a HR question, yeah? And then your talent management. How do you assign courtesan roles? Do you tell us about your thought process on how do you kind of organize all your courtesans and your talent manage?
I don't manage them. They create their own person. So I give them the idea of Yanzilou, the basic foundation knowledge of Tang Dynasty, and I work with them to craft their own person. So it's a bit different from the rest of plays where you have a fixed character and you're supposed to act that person, because none of the courtesan girls are a professional actor. So we're very well aware of that. So they have to build something that they can relate to, and it's like awakening the ancient soul. So I also saw someone asking, how did they come up with the name? So they are the one who came up with their own name. We have a list of how Tang Dynasty people will call themselves. And depending on your own backstory, you can craft something that's explains why you're named a certain way, or you can just adopt a physical name that is from the period. So Chua, for example, is a real name from that period, from the courtesan. And Pan actually was the historical name of two courtesans in ancient China. One is from Tang Dynasty. Her full name is Guan Pan, and she really lived in Yanzilou. So that was my namesake. And I remember when my great-grandfather heard about my name, he told my mom that she should rename me because it wasn't a really nice name. But my mom just didn't bother because she didn't know what she was referring to. So now that I looking back, I kind of understood what he was referring to because of this taboo associated with the name Pan and courtesans. Yeah.
Okay, before I invite the other panelists to comment on some of the questions we also posted to our audience. So Pan, maybe can you tell us what do you consider as ancient Chinese art, and how is ancient and traditional arts different?
Oh, that's a very good question. When I first started the Yanzilou project, I didn't think of art as the way modern people think about it in isolated format like music, dance. I integrated it with the socio-political and cultural background, which is why I felt that it was important that they know about the art of flower arrangement, the art of decorating your room, even games and all. I feel that all of them constitute to this idea of art, because art does not exist in isolation. It exists because of the environment, of the influences of the culture that it's brought in, and especially also the way you dress is important way how you move, especially when you're dancing. So all these influence the way art is being created in that period. So I wanted it to be as process driven and as method as possible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pan. And now I'd like to also invite our artists, our dancers and musicians to tell us a bit about how do you balance like making ancient art forms contemporary and relatable? So Ruimin, can I invite you to share a bit on your thoughts? And how do you perform for a modern audience without compromising the essence of art that's handed over from our ancestors? We are not hearing Ruimin very clear. Not sure if anyone else has audio issues. Yeah.
Hi.
Yep, good. Mm, yeah, she's breaking up.
Now.
Okay, maybe we invite Lynn. Do you want to take that question first?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
So how do you balance making ancient art forms contemporary or relatable for modern audience?
Well, for me, my role in this production is mainly in besides production crew, artistically speaking, I am in charge, so-called in charge of the foreign dance called the Wu. So in researching on this Wu, it actually came from the Sogdians, who originate as Pan introduced just now. They are related to modern day Iranians, so Persians at that point in time. So I went to research a little bit more into Iranian dance, Persian dance. And then I realized, hey, it's actually very similar to the Xinjiang Wu that we see in modern day Chinese dance. So I took a lot of reference from that, and also videos of Iranian dancers and Persian dancers. Whether it's a balance of contemporary and modern, I didn't think that I had to think too much on that, because as a person myself, I am a person in the modern day. So me interpreting the ancient art form itself already provides some sort of balance, because I am interpreting it with my modern mindset. Yeah. And whether or not it's like courtesan-like or anything, I thought that just as an artist, I just need to do what I felt was right in that sense, that would lead to that artistic form. So because courtesans at that point in time, they were essentially artists themselves. So that would make me a modern day courtesan in that sense. So in terms of balancing, I didn't have to think too much on that. Yeah.
Let's see if, thanks Lynn, let's see if Ruimin can get her audio back and see if she wants to chime in.
Hi. No, okay now.
Yeah, we can hear you better now.
I just typed something in the chat also. So I do think that most of the great organizing and defense. So I always try to figure that the choice that I made, is it like the way that I perform, or the about the decision of things in the dance. I try to make sure that I am able to why do I make and from? I think that is, no, I'm still quite.
Okay. Yeah, Ruimin, you can also maybe try logging off and on again. We'll come back, we'll circle back to you. Okay, I'll move on to other panelists. Oh, Madeline. So you're the one amongst the panelists who's not like a professional artist, dancer or musician. So what prompted you to get interested in Chinese culture or art forms?
I think a lot might actually agree with me. It's the power of TV dramas. I think growing up, I didn't have a lot of access to like there was the battle between whether to forsake the mother tongue and pursue English or to pretty much stick with Mandarin speaking. So growing up, I had that battle going on, and then the only main thing that connected me with Chinese or like my Chinese identity is TV dramas, and to looking back, it isn't a great portrayal or a great depiction of what real Chinese history is quite fantasized and quite dramatized. But because of these period dramas and even some stories about like the Lynn, martial, stories, it inspired me to actually dig deeper and to actually do my own research. So I think quite a lot of younger folks, or maybe like people from the 80s, born in the 80s, could relate, is that we are inspired by TV and then we try to dig deeper from that. But those who don't have very good command of Chinese will have problems with research or finding historical background or historical text to support the origin of like the dramas or the stories that we hear about.
Thanks, Madeline. So do you think ancient arts has an audience today? And if there's anything we can do more to have a wider audience?
I think, or maybe it's just me or amongst my friends, we have this stage where we are like trying to find out our roots, or like who we really are, or there's so many cultures that's around, then what actually was its original form. So as we travel back in time, looking at the different dynasties and even geographically, the different countries, all the history, I think young people are not so disconnected. Actually, in fact, that they might actually want to pretty much find out what is going on, the lost part of our identity, I guess. And sadly, we don't really have much exposure as everyone's trying to modernize and push forward with technology, and probably less coverage of like the Asian cultures, more Western. There is still a good handful, but not so commonly known. A lot have to go back to individual passion projects, like what Mama Pan said. Most of the funding and most of the research is self-initiated, not so much government or organizational orchestrated. Yeah.
And I think there's a very interesting comment from Desmond that Mama Pan would like to address. So Desmond says, just wondering, what is the main goal of recreating Chinese culture through Yanzilou, especially showcasing Tang Dynasty? As in Singapore context, most of us might think Chinese culture as something China. So Mama Pan, what would you like to say? Why Tang? Why Yanzilou? What is it the message that you want to deliver?
I agree with Desmond in the way that he viewed what we think in Singapore as being Chinese culture. So that's precisely why we recreated the Tang Dynasty, to show that what we assume to be Chinese in the modern and Singaporean context is actually just maybe the last 100 years. In fact, the idea of Chinese identity and culture is much more diverse than that. And it's not as singular as we think, because that's my problem when I was looking at the way we look at Chinese culture as a very Southern Chinese migrant art form, quite removed from the ancient past. And I felt that, there's so much more we can learn about multiculturalism without saying that, this is Chinese, this is Indian, this is Malay, and in their own isolated vacuum. In fact, they've always been merging together through trade, through all kinds of influences for thousands of years. So it's not a pure thing. There's no such thing as a pure Chinese culture per se. It's always been influenced by external cultural existence. And a lot of things that we assume to be very Chinese had a very foreign origin, like, for example, pipa. Everybody thinks that it's a Chinese instrument in Chinese orchestra, but actually it came from Central Asia. So all these things, I want people to rethink about what we assume to be a singular, pure identity, and realize that our identities were very much linked from different cultures, and to look at it from a very macro way through history, and to accept that, we are not, there's no point in being pure, because there's no such thing. And our identity are very much, it's very diverse. Yeah.
And thanks, Pan. And I think, this is a good segue into the topic on multiculturalism. Do you think we are more multicultural and cosmopolitan today than the past? Are we more accepting today of foreign ideas and cultures?
Well, I think that history moves in circles, maybe spirals, but we always go back to the same point because humanity never really changed. So even in Tang, even though it's very cosmopolitan, it became to a point where, because of the many foreigners in Tang dynasty, and there were conflicts because of differences, and then they became very xenophobic, and there were cases of the Huangchao rebellion where foreigners were killed on Chinese land by virtue of them looking different, even though they might be like many generations in China and naturalized Chinese people, even though of a different minority race. So I realized that, history always repeats itself. And so the concept of multiculturalism and how we are experiencing multiculturalism in this cosmopolitan world sort of still revolves around the same kind of cycle of human behavior, emotions, and response to it. Yeah.
Thanks, Pan. I would like to have Rupa to comment on this, and because of the character that you play in this project, tell us a bit more.
Hi. So actually, I think it is very important to stay true to the identities that we have, and also understand that we are always learning something new, and we have always evolved from something that we have learned from another tradition or another culture. So for myself, there are a lot of similarities between the Devadasis back in India with relation to the courtesans. So a lot of the Devadasis were actually servants of God, and more like married to the gods. And they cannot marry any mortal men because they are already married to a god, but they can choose mortal partners, similar to what Mama Pan mentioned earlier. And the Devadasis also learned art forms and performed in temples, and they did so to earn gold and land and their royalties from such. And as for myself, playing the role of Rupa, meaning amber. So amber is a type of jewelry, it's bright, and I'm from a family, a well-to-do family. So the piece that I have come up with is a Bharatanatyam piece with a little bit of what I feel would have been the way an Indian would have performed back in the days, together with some little Chinese influence. Since I have been in the real life, I have been living in China from the age of 14 when I moved over. And my current age would be around 32. So yeah, that would be my story development for my character.
And Rupa, I also understand you and Ruimin has like a collaboration piece in the project. Let's see if Ruimin can have her audio working well. Maybe Ruimin, you want to share a bit on the dance piece. Oh, is it working? Can we hear you? Oh no, we can't
Still
hear
not
you.
working.
Yeah.
How about now?
If you speak a bit louder, maybe we can catch you. Yeah.
Hello, hi.
Yep.
Oh, it's good?
Yes.
Yay, okay. The more collaborative process, I guess, for me and Rupa would be that I was dancing in her piece. So as Rupa is the choreographer, she shares a lot of I would say her Bharatanatyam knowledge with us, and that is when we like sort of input on our own knowledge of I would say somewhat Dunhuang kind of style, and that's when we like came up with what we decide to put in the dance. So actually, I do choreograph another piece in Yanzilou. It's mainly Dunhuang based. It's the one with the pipa. So that's why I think the piece that I choreograph is sort of has a closer relation also to what Rupa is doing. So I guess that's the collaborative process in a sense. Yeah. What was that?
Okay. Thanks, Ruimin. And speaking of pipa, we haven't forgotten our musician in the house, Neil, and he recently did also a production or performance that incorporated multiculturalism. So maybe I'll invite Neil to share with us about that piece of work, and also a transition into the theme that we want to talk about as well, about how COVID has changed performing arts. So Neil, over to you.
Thank you, Lynn. For me, the ancient arts and traditional arts always give me a lot of inspirations. Besides that, I love modern art as well. So I've been created this new piece is called Night Walker, and the Night Walker was inspired by the multiculturalism in Singapore. So in this work, actually, I have been infused a lot. I've been infused like Indian Bharatanatyam dance. At the same time, I also infused some lost China culture, which is the timekeeping method back to the ancient China times. So so for me, I'm trying to to keep the original essence as much as possible in my work, and then I adopt their value into my piece as well. At the same time, I like to infuse or use the elements which our audience might be familiar with. So like the languages, the sounds, the culture practice, and technology as well. So maybe I can share more about these productions with you.
Go ahead, Neil.
Right. So for this production, it's called Night Walker, and the Night Walker actually was actually is a tribute to my instrument run, because actually I have been practicing this instrument for 25 years, and then I've been studying in China for 7 years to complete my bachelor and master degree on these run performance. And then I feel that one night I feel that maybe I should create a piece for my lovely instruments. And then I share about that the run actually was a lost art, and then the modern run actually was just built not too long ago. I think it's around 1960 something. So there's no burden for me to recreate to form my own art form on these instruments. And then beside that, I'm thinking like to form up storylines or something like that, to telling a story. So and then I got inspired during the nighttime. So I think maybe I should reintroduce the ancient time systems to the modern audiences, because in the previous times we don't have a clock. So how the Chinese telling the times? So they have these occupations, they call it Kung Fu, and then they have this cultural practice they call Da Geng. So they will hit the gongs, the gong man will hit the gongs and then travel around the villages to tell the village, the people what is the time now. So different timing, they have a different rhythms. And then they will remind the people, maybe like the middle stage of the night, what should you be careful or watch out during that timing as well. Beside that, and then I'm thinking to, to create something which is visible versus invisible. So in a real life, the visible thing is quite, it's quite normal and it's quite obvious. What about the invisible things? So I'm thinking maybe in this production, let's create a parallel space. So I have 4 characters, which is me. I've been performed as a musician in the real life, and then there's a gong man, which is the Kung Fu, which represent the past. And then a digital artist represents the future, and a spirit, a night spirit, it came from a third space. So when these 4 characters, they come together, what will happen? So this is a multidisciplinary works. I shared before, and then was inspired by the multiculturalism in Singapore as well. So beside that, we have a run music playings, and then we have a Chinese Teochew opera on board to act as a Kung Fu as well. And then a night spirit was performed by a very young Bharatanatyam dancer and a digital sound artist as well. So in this work, actually, I want my audiences to imagine the musical and a fantasy night as well. For this production, we do not have any dialogues. Mostly it's music. And then the outcome, actually, we want everyone to think positive. So we want to create the understandings and inspire everyone to cheer up everyone, especially in these difficult times. There's always a light waiting for you after the tunnels. So I would like to share a very summary clip for you for Night Walker as well, and then all the musics was composed by myself, and then I adopt a lot of beside the Chinese traditional tunes and also some Indian music influence, moderns, and some contemporary music as well. So if you're interested in this piece, you can visit my website. It's called runandworks.com. Yep. And then this work was commissioned by Singapore Chinese Cultural Center. And then we have a premiere back in June as well.
I think they went to eat lunch or dinner.
Can you hear the sound?
No, the sound's not coming through for some reason.
Okay, give me a while. there sound?
Yep.
Let the land be fertile. Let the land be fertile.
King Ang Boss.
It's okay, Didi. Right. Oh, it's okay, Didi. It's okay, right? It's okay.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's
Neil.
all for this introduction. So if you are interested, you can visit riotwork.com. So there's more information there. And then I also just launched an album about Nightwalker. So if you're interested, you can look for me in Spotify. Just type in Neil Chua, you will find my albums.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks
Thank you.
for sharing with us. And our audience have been very, very participative and very, very engaging with us. Thank you so much. I'm very conscious of time. We're running to almost 10 minutes to 5 now. So if you have any final comments or questions, put them in the chat. And you can always engage with us through social media. So this is not the end of it. So before we wrap up, I'd like to also invite either Madeline, our production, our cinematographer. What can we expect next? Or do we have Mama Pan to also comment on that afterwards?
Okay, so we're
audience
wrapping up the filming tomorrow. And we're gonna, well, actually, to be honest, COVID forced us to document the performance and make it available for posterity, which is something that, you know, performers generally are not aware of doing it. And also make it available for people regardless of where they're from. So, and it allows us to zoom in on the details of the things that we have, such as, say, for example, the bowls that we have that was like, you know, really finely engraved. This is by a Southeast Asian artisan based on a Tang motif, and all the fine things that we had back in Tang dynasty. So we really wanted to zoom in on that, and we want to put it on a platform that has a bit more interactivity. So there is a 360-degree kind of video for one of the dance that we'll be having. And also some of the, we have a film sort of where you get to choose which courtesan you would like to follow her journey. So that is something that we're trying to experiment with this performance, making it virtual. So, and also because we did so much research, we wanted to slowly start giving lectures about all this research as a way of fundraising for the program, for our, you know, performance. So that's also like something that we're coming up with. And we're trying to see whether we can actually rent a more permanent space to have more physical performance that in time when things are a bit better. Yeah.
Thank you, Pan. So I've also left the social media account for Hanfugirls, and there's also a new one created for Yanzilou, specific for the project, which you can follow on Instagram. And of course, we appreciate your feedback. So before you leave today, please do leave us a feedback and continue to interact with us. I know there are a lot more questions, and there are some questions that we probably haven't answered, like how long does Mama Pan took to dress up and do all her makeup? So you can get all the answers to that on our social media. So and I believe, Pan, there are also some people that you would want to thank for the project. So let's move to the acknowledgement slide.
Yes, so we really thank every member because they're all multitaskers and all rounders. Everything's sort of executed by the different courtesans, apprentices, and definitely Stanford Art Center, because we've been doing this residency 2 times, being here almost like a 6-7 month. Because of COVID, they're very nice to really extend the whole residency for us, allow us to film on different days. And yes, we get a lot of complaints from our husband, boyfriend partners because of time commitment. So thank them as well. And Camera Rental Center for lending us all these equipments at a very affordable price so that we can put it virtually out to the world with the limited budget that we have. Yes, so hope everybody will, support us. We finally launch it. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be quite interesting and engaging. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pampan. So some last comments and questions. I want to do this for our fans or audience. We have volunteers to become 店小二 in Yanzilou, and there's also a question if Hanfugirls Collective will be expanding soon. So do you think you do another call anytime in the future? And what will be the criteria?
The criteria is not to think that we are here for a photo shoot, and to really be focused on research, because that's what we're really about. When we did the call last time, we had a lot of people who think that they want to be models, but that's really not the point. We really want people to be in it to research about the content and to present it in a engaging format to everybody, so that we can rethink about our assumptions about Chinese culture and identity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pampan. Thank you also to our panelists, Neil for being the guest musician, very special one, Madeline, Ruimin, Rupa, and Lynn. And of course, our very, very fabulous audience. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll just hang around for the last few minutes. So if you want to stay on and interact with us in the last few minutes, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, and just unmute yourself. Turn on your video.
Yeah, we could do a group photo. So thanks, Lynn. I think we can do the stop screen share.
Yeah, actually, I have a lot of things that I want to share with everybody, but presentation takes precedence, so I cannot share. But like this fan, it's called like a fan that was from the Warring State, that kind of shape. It's like a blade-looking fan. The purpose of it is to cover your face when you see someone you don't like. Yeah, and Tang Dynasty women would cover their face when they on the wedding day as well. Yeah, so these are the fun things that I brought.
Okay, so I'm gonna take some screen captures now. So feel free to turn on your video if you want to be in this picture. Okay. Okay, let's do this. Green screen, smile. I have to do this multiple times because there are a few pages, quite a few of you on this call. Okay. Next one more. Small. Okay, last page. Thank you. Okay, done. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
And have a good weekend.
Yeah, you can still hang around, everybody, but like this is like the
official end.
Yeah, the sphere, the incense ball. It's really interesting because like it's got like different axes. So when you put your incense in there, no matter how you rotate it, the incense won't spill out. So that's from Tang Dynasty. And yeah, so that's quite fun. And a lot of fun things. Yeah. So hopefully we get to share with more people in time to come.
Yep, and I think there's some good news for the arts and performance sector with sort of, I guess, more people vaccinated. there's allowance for in-person performance?
Maybe in like half a year's time when we move to a final proper place. The incense is used, okay, in ancient past, incense was used for timekeeping as well as for scenting, like perfume and all these. So we scent ourselves or carry around ourselves so that it smells nice. And you know, when you meet emperor, you have to have a bit of incense in your mouth so that there's this like breath mint that you have to have so that you don't smell too bad. Then all these kind of interesting things. And the fans, cups, outfits were all purchased because of the revival of Chinese dressing in China. There is actually a lot of people selling replicas of ancient Chinese stuff based on mural paintings or artifacts. The thing about Tang Dynasty dress is that because a lot of them is made of silk and it's been like over 1,200 years ago, a lot of the Chinese dresses were not kept till today, especially for women. We actually do not have an archaeological dig of what women really wore except through the paintings. So I collected about I think at least 30 sets of Tang accurate motif kind of silk dress. So that's what the courtesans were wearing during the filming as well. Yeah.
There's a question from you, Stacia.
Yeah, whether the depiction of courtesans differ from noble women in China, given that they are from different castes. Depiction
Sorry,
of...
Pampan, do you need elaboration?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Okay, because within Japan, right, for the Heian dynasty, whenever they are painting courtesans or in terms of how they behave, courtesans are allowed to face the men directly and they're allowed to sort of intermingle with the guys, whereas Japanese noble women are basically expected to leave their lives behind a screen. So you will never see their faces in paintings, they'll be uncovered or they'll be behind screens when they're being painted. So I'm wondering whether something similar was happening in courtesans in Tang Dynasty, because the evolution of how they move from like artisans towards like prostitute kind of image is similar between the two countries.
I think Tang Dynasty noble women actually, they had a lot of power as well. Like, you know, we have the female emperor, right? The only female emperor in history. So her daughter, Taiping, Princess Taiping, was known to, wear a male robe, so and then emperor would laugh at it and say, oh, why do you wear like a man, and then eventually women started wearing male robes. So courtesan and noble women were actually quite similar in that way. They were very empowered by society, but I've not really studied about noble women and a depiction per se, so I can't really answer for sure, but generally they were on par in terms of what they can do with life. But except that, like noble women have to marry people of their own caste. And that is something that, even though no matter how empowered they are, they still have to marry according to the caste system in that way. Whereas for, safe caste women, we cannot marry out of our caste as well. So these are the differences. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the time is past 5 now.
Yay, let's go home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for staying on with us. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you. Have a good weekend.